I never expected an invitation to my brother's engagement party. Not after 3 years of silence. The thick, cream-colored cardstock felt foreign in my hands, the gold embossed letters spelling out my name like some cruel joke. Daniel and Lillian request the pleasure of your company. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Mom called later that evening. You're coming, aren't you? Her voice had that tightness it always got when she was nervous. It would mean so much to Daniel. I wanted to laugh. Since when did anything mean so much to Daniel? The last time we spoke, he told me I was an embarrassment to the family. That was after I showed up to Dad's funeral in the only black dress I owned, a thrift store find with a loose hem. I'll think about it, I lied. The truth was, I had nothing to wear. My receptionist's salary barely covered rent for my tiny apartment, let alone designer clothes fit for a country club engagement party. But something stubborn inside me refused to let them win. Maybe it was the way Lillian's Instagram post had casually cropped me out of the last family photo. Maybe it was Daniel's smug smile in every picture with his fiancée, who came from old money, as Mom loved to remind me. I spent the next 2 weeks hunting for something, anything, that wouldn't make me look like the poor relation. When I finally found a decent dress on clearance, it cost me half my grocery budget. As I stood in my bathroom mirror that night, trying to make my drugstore makeup look expensive, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, don't be late tomorrow. And for God's sake, try to look presentable. I should have known then what kind of night it would be. The valet took one look at my dented Honda and pointed me toward self-parking. Guest parking is around back, he said with the kind of smile rich people use when they're being polite but want you to disappear. The walk to the country club felt endless. My heels, borrowed from a coworker, pinched with every step. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the party already in full swing. Crystal glasses sparkled under chandeliers. A string quartet played something classical. And there, at the center of it all, stood Daniel with his arm around Lillian. She was even more stunning in person. Her champagne-colored dress probably cost more than my car. When she turned and saw me hovering at the entrance, her perfect eyebrows arched slightly. Callie! Her voice was all honey, but her eyes were ice. You actually came. Daniel barely glanced at me before turning back to his friends. Glad you could make it, he muttered, already steering Lillian away. I grabbed a drink from a passing waiter and found the darkest corner I could. The champagne burned going down. Around me, conversations about European vacations and stock portfolios swirled. I recognized some faces. Daniel's college friends. Dad's old business associates, but no one acknowledged me. Then I heard it. That laugh. The one Lillian, reserved for when she was about to say something cruel disguised as a joke. Poor Callie, she was saying to a group of women. It's so sweet, she tried to dress up. That color almost looks expensive in this light. The women tittered. My face burned. I was about to slip out when a voice behind me said, There you are. I turned and nearly dropped my glass. Standing there in a suit that cost more than my yearly rent was James Carter. My boss. The CEO of Carter Holdings. And he was looking at me like we were old friends. The room went quiet. I could feel dozens of eyes on us as James casually took my empty champagne glass and handed me a fresh one. Sorry I'm late, he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Traffic was brutal coming from the airport. I opened my mouth but no sound came out. Since when did James Carter know my name, let alone show up to personal events? Lillian materialized at my elbow, her perfume suddenly overwhelming. And you are? James extended his hand. James Carter? I'm Callie's. He paused, a mischievous glint in his eye. Well, I suppose boss is too simple. Callie's the reason our last quarter profits exceeded expectations. I nearly choked on my champagne. I was a receptionist. I answered phones and sorted mail. Daniel appeared, his face pale. James Carter? Of Carter Holdings. The one and only, James said smoothly. He turned to me. We need to go over those merger documents before Monday. The board is insisting only you can walk them through the numbers. Now I was certain this was some bizarre dream. The merger? James nodded solemnly. The $50 million one. The one you single-handedly negotiated. He glanced at his watch. Actually, we should probably head out. Our call with Tokyo is in an hour. Lillian's mouth actually fell open. You're leaving? But you just got here. James gave her a polite smile. Business never sleeps, I'm afraid. He leaned closer to me. Oh, and Callie? That bonus we discussed. The board approved the full amount. 50,000. The gasp from the surrounding crowd was almost comical. As James guided me toward the exit, I caught a glimpse of Daniel's face. For the first time in years, my brother looked at me with something resembling respect. And that's when I realized James wasn't just being kind. This was revenge. The moment we reached the parking lot, I whirled on James. What the hell was that? He grinned, looking younger than his 45 years. That, he said, unlocking a sleek black Mercedes, was Justice. As we drove away from the country club, James explained. He'd been at a charity gala last week where Lillian was loudly telling anyone who would listen about her pathetic future sister-in-law who worked as a receptionist and lived in a shoebox apartment. I recognized your name, he said. Did some digging. Saw how your family treats you. He glanced at me. Figured you could use backup. I stared out the window, my emotions tangled. You didn't have to do that. Yes, he said firmly. I did. My phone started buzzing before we'd even reached the highway. Text from Daniel. Since when do you work on mergers? Why didn't you tell us about your job? Call me. I silenced my phone. James dropped me off at my apartment with a promise to continue the charade if needed. I barely slept that night, replaying the evening in my head. The next morning, my inbox had an email from HR, subject line, promotion offer. I clicked it open, certain it was a mistake. Then I read the words, Vice President of Corporate Strategy. Salary, triple what I made now. I showed up to work Monday in a daze, certain the promotion email had been sent in error. But James was waiting in my tiny reception area, 2 coffees in hand. Ready for your first day as VP? He asked, handing me one. I nearly dropped it. That was real. Very. He gestured toward the elevators. Your office is on the 32nd floor. Corner view. As we rode up, he explained. The merger story hadn't been entirely fabricated. There really was a deal in the works, one they'd been struggling to close. And after some digging, James said as the elevator doors opened to reveal my new office, I discovered you have an economics degree from Stanford. With honors. My face burned. No one at work knew about my education. I'd taken the receptionist job out of desperation after Dad cut me off. Why me? I asked. James smiled. Because anyone who can survive that family of yours can survive a boardroom. That afternoon, as I sat at my new desk staring at the skyline, my phone rang. Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. 6 months later, another thick envelope arrived. Wedding invitations. My name was now front and center, listed with the family, instead of tucked away with distant cousins. Lillian had even included a handwritten note. So excited to celebrate with you. James is welcome too, of course. I showed it to James at our now weekly strategy meetings. He laughed. Desperation looks good on her. I almost didn't go, but James convinced me. Go, he said. Hold your head high. Let them see what they missed. So I went. And this time, I didn't wear a clearance rack dress. The church was even more opulent than the engagement party. White orchids everywhere. A 12-piece orchestra. And at the center of it all, Lillian in a gown that probably cost more than my annual salary. Her smile faltered when she saw me. Because this time, I didn't arrive alone. James stepped out of the town car behind me, looking devastating in his tuxedo. But it wasn't his presence that made Lillian's face go pale. It was the way he held my hand. The whispers started immediately. Is that Callie with James Carter? I heard they're dating. Did you know she's VP of his company now? Lillian spent the entire reception shooting me venomous looks between forced smiles. Daniel kept trying to corner James to talk business opportunities, but James would just smile and say, Talk to Callie. She handles all that now. The best moment came when Lillian's father, the man who'd once told me I'd never amount to anything, pulled me aside. I hear congratulations are in order, he said, nodding toward James across the room. Both professionally and personally. I sipped my champagne. Life has a funny way of working out. As the party wound down, James and I prepared to leave. Lillian intercepted us at the door. Leaving so soon? Her voice was sweet, but her grip on my arm was tight. James smiled. Early flight to Paris. He squeezed my hand. Our 6-month anniversary trip. The look on Lillian's face was priceless. As we walked to the car, I glanced back one last time. Daniel and Lillian were arguing near the cake table, their perfect facade finally cracking. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the poor relation. I felt victorious. The Paris trip was real. So was the promotion. And the respect. But the best part, 6 months after the wedding, James and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Can we talk? I showed it to James. He raised an eyebrow. Going to answer? I smiled, and for the first time, the decision felt easy. I turned my phone face down on the table. Not tonight. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't confrontation. It's living well. And I was finally living very, very well.